Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of 40K Fight Club. We are live with you today for Webway Gatekeepers, returning to the fun-based titles of 2 episodes ago, I suppose. I am live to you from a slightly different location. This is my actual room, the guest bedroom, which means my camera's a little bit worse because I'm not on the house computer. So you'll just have to deal with that. I'm a little bit stuttery, unfortunately. Hello to Anthony and Nathan. Nathan, continuing that lovely countdown. How are you guys? How's your week been?
My weekend was great. I won an RTT, which is always exciting. Go and knock over a quick 3-rounder. Felt good. Got to play the new hotness, the clowns. I mean, I played mono Drukari, nothing else. A small patrol.
That's mono in the same way as like the disease, right?
Yeah, it was for my opponents, that's for sure. Dropping 0 points in 3 games felt good. Anyway, how was your weekend, Nathan?
I mean, I was prepping all weekend for a job interview on Monday, so that's most of what I spent my weekend doing. And then I randomly assembled 5 more Skyweavers, so now I've got 10 assembled and ready to go. Probably not going to end up being able to play them at Adepticon, but we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks as I try to finish this job thing up. But I played a game against Tau with mixed light Harlequins and Drukari. Made a couple really bad mistakes in my thought process and got windmill slapped right back into the garbage can, which was hilarious and fun for me. Other than that, it was a pretty good weekend. Can't complain. How about you, Ennis?
Yeah, not been too bad. I mad dash built 6 Sky Slashers for a game with Brian, a friend of mine, Brian, on Friday. So I played 2 games in the new Tau with my test list for Manchester, which is a mixed Tyranids and Cheats list, which I'm very not enthused to play after today's rumors. Yeah, it's really hard to be motivated about my Tyranids now.
Playing Crusher. Gross.
I don't want to try. I can't travel with it. It's just not good. I don't want to fly with
really?
it twice. Yeah,
That's
flying with
actually-
Harpies just doesn't sound fun.
That's what they do.
Yeah, they do, but they don't have in the packaging. Not so much. So yeah, I built some Sky Slashers. They are the worst models I've ever built. Please, if you ever have the option of not building Sky Slashers, take that option. It's admirable. Other than that, I was meant to have like 3 days off to get like some building and painting done, and then a bunch of people at my work phoned in sick, so I decided to take a bunch of shifts, which is great for the money, but really sad for my free time. So yeah, I'm like went from having 5 days off this week to 1 day off this week. So take what you can get, I guess. So yeah, not much on my end. Just prepping for. I have starting next weekend 4 tournaments in a row, so I can't complain too much about that. Unfortunately, only one of them will be with the new Ned's book, and the other 3 are not. So, so I'm just gonna sit there and be like, yeah, this is really not as fun.
Yeah.
It's always the universal disappointment of basically seeing the whole book and then just not knowing when the actual rules will be released. Although I'd imagine soon, given we've just now today basically had the whole book except for lore and crusade rules dumped on us.
Well, the earliest they can come out is the 2nd of April now, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
because they have to do a pre-order announcement on Sunday, and then a week until after that is pre-order. So that would be the Saturday the 26th, and then they release on the 2nd. So the earliest is the 2nd now.
I mean,
Yeah.
I will say the last book that went up for pre-order on the 26th was Drukari, and since that's my birthday, I just assume that any book that's released at that around that time frame is just going to be great. So maybe you have 9 months of BNOP in your.
The nice thing is we do at least dodge the on the Friday the 1st of April. That is not a good day to have a book release.
True.
Yeah,
So yeah,
super interesting. The best part of today was definitely that brief window where we didn't have the leak that you could only take 1 Hive Tyrant per detachment, and then everybody wrote the same list.
5 tyrants.
Everybody suddenly went back to the days of why we got the rule of 3 in the first place. They were like, oh yeah, why can't I take 6 Hive Tyrants and a Swarm Lord? I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I helped write that list. I miss it so much.
I think you're the only person who actually misses that list, though, Ines.
No, I have a friend. The other guy that I designed the list with he took a leave of absence for AOS for a bit. He came back when Crusher Stampede dropped to play 3 tyrants and 6 of the other flyers. So he very clearly missed it too.
I mean, I guess you can miss something that badly. It's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a thing.
Yeah. I can't say I'd recommend missing it that badly. It was awful for the game, and I'm glad it's gone. But I do have 9 Hive Tyrants sitting in a box, so swings and
Yeah.
roundabouts.
I miss Thick City every day. I've just resolved to make people suffer with clowns now instead.
Playing you is always suffering, I hear, Anthony. So
I do my best.
Yeah. I mean, for me, 90% of the enjoyment of clowns is watching my opponents like soul leave their bodies as I do something hilarious to them, like consolidate out of combat back into a transport and then zip away the next turn to do it someplace else.
yeah, I'm going to censor this, but you can imagine what's.
Look, what I really
Okay.
want with the Tyranid preview is for Haywire to affect monsters and vehicles now, but I know that's not going to happen, so I'm just going to keep dreaming.
So we're going to call that the end of the Tyranid simping section of the podcast, because otherwise I'll just spend the next 2 hours diving into them, because I still want to. But we're going to wait till they're officially released. They are only leaked, and we maintain an official policy of not talking about leaked content. Okay. So,
You said the loud part quiet there. I like it.
so let's move on to themes of the week. So, what is the primary storylines of this week in 40k? Nathan, you've been sitting with the stats and the numbers for longer than us. What's been the general vibe this week?
Strangely enough, I haven't had a ton of overreactions, which is usually what I would expect to see coming out this week, especially with some of the stats that we're seeing. But it seems for some reason or another, the 40k community has decided to be relatively chill about the preliminary numbers that have started to come out of tournaments, or at least nobody has harassed me with charts as much as sometimes they do, or pinged me as much on Discord trying to tell me how everything that I said before was wrong and their factions are all actually not OP and I'm just a liar who sits in a chair and tells everybody falsehoods. But instead, nobody did that, which was kind of nice. I didn't get sent a bunch of weird messages from people who are very hurt that their OP factions make them somehow less of a good player somehow, I guess.
So, what I'm hearing, community, you guys need to fix that. Send Nathan your weird messages telling him how your faction's not OP. I'll be in his DMs in a minute saying that Tyranids are not OP. All you guys, get in the comments, get on the YouTube comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and flame Nathan. That's the 3 things we really need you to do this episode, guys.
It's okay. Thank you for the immediate response, Anthony, in my direct messages. So I'm going to pop just right into the top 10s. I'm going to tell everybody this week was really light on events. There were only 6 GT-sized events this week, so that's 25.
No, there weren't. GT says it's 28, right?
Well, we track 25. So I should say events that we track for the purposes of our statistics is 25 and 5 rounds. I know the cutoff officially for GT is 28. Seth, Tower OP, get the hell out. GTFO, Seth.
How are OP? Seth is not.
Oh, I've made a terrible mistake because now I have like 3 DMs in my box already. So yeah, there were only 6 events that me and Kiri tracked this week in our stats. There were a bunch of events that had a large amount of attrition and popped under 25 people, either through drops or people not showing up. So we tracked 6 events. We're only going to talk about the GT-sized events for the purposes of the show later when we go through lists, which is 28 or more players.
We have 3 events to talk about this week.
3?
That met my criteria.
Yeah, your criteria. That's fine. You can have your own criteria in it. Yes, it's fine.
It tells a better story,
so
by
let's
the way,
talk
because
about...
Custodes won them all.
I mean, it's going to tell pretty much the same story when I get to who wins everything. Don't worry about it, because the number is egregious. The top 10 from this weekend and then top 4s are what I'm going to talk about first. And then we have a few things about winners. Mostly it's just about Custodes winning 36.4% of their events that they participated in, or 100% of the events that Innis is tracking. So that's all 3 of them. Custodes are still really good. They were 9.9% of overall meta representation this weekend. They were 13% of top 10s and then 20.8% of top 4s. So what you're seeing is that a lot of players are converting from that top 10 to that top 4. So even though I think the numbers are being dragged down just a little bit as their meta rep increases, just because as your player base increases, you are bound to get a few more players who are not as good at the game. So it might drag down your numbers a little bit. And then Tau have increased in meta rep again this week. So they've gone up to 11%. And they got 21.7% of their top 10s and then 20.8% of top 4s. And then they had just 1 GT win. So that's 4 out of 6 events that were won by either Tau or Custodes this weekend. Mechanicus won one of them, and then I can't remember who won the other one. I'll think about it and remember it later. So
I
a
think
lot.
it was that was the small one that was won by Custos as well. I think.
It might be. I'll have to double check my numbers again. I could actually just look at my sheet.
And that'll make great radio.
Oh, Custodes won 4 events. That's what it was. So it's
Yeah,
4 events for
because Custos won
Custodes.
the
Yeah.
Twisted Dice one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just missed one event for Custodes. I'm sorry, Custodes players. You actually won 4 out of the 6 events. And that doesn't make any sense. How did I get 36%? I'll talk about that later. I'm going to look at that number later and double check why I have 36%. I feel like I lied about something horribly here.
Yeah, because it's 66% on the weekend. So
What is it dividing by in this sheet? Oh, okay. Now I know. I figured out what it was. Excuse me while I fix something.
okay, so what we had from that broadly is that Tau 11% representation, making up 20% of top fours, nearly doubling their average rate. And this is on a really quiet weekend. We had one GT with 50, and then nothing else was above 30. So yeah, really quiet weekend. Tau's still putting up really good numbers. We'll get into some of the Harlequins and Eldar numbers later. That's one of our topics of
I
conversation.
promise.
We'll be looking at how they have landed in the meta. That's why we're calling this episode Webway Gatekeepers, so we can get that little bit of clickbait in there on whether they're actually good or not. They are,
Yep.
but you know, if you're reading the name, you don't know that yet, and maybe we're saying something else.
So let's continue on then. So I can talk about Tau first. They are still busted. I'm sorry, Tau fans, and I'm sorry, Seth Oster in particular.
Don't be sorry to Seth.
Their 65% win rate this week makes them the top performing faction with at least 10 players from this week. They had 21 players, so they're overall, when you look at the numbers as a whole, hovering rate under 70%. So they're at 67.8% for win rate, which is basically 68 and very close to 70. And then Custodes are also bruised this week, but still busted. They did drop in win rate a little bit this week. They didn't perform very well on the whole, but their win rate overall is still 59.3, or it was only 59.3%, but they were 67.3% for the whole month. So they dropped under 60, but they're still nearly 70.
And they won 4 of the 6 tournaments.
Yep, which is 66%. I can divide. I was just dividing by previous week's number of tournaments, which was 11.
Yeah.
And then
that's probably not a good thing, yeah.
No. So
and if you half their win rate at tournaments, it'd still be too high.
It's true. So how about Dem Eldar is basically the title of the next segment. So Craftworld Eldar by themselves had a 62.9% win rate. They had only 7 players this week, so they are starting out pretty hot, just as far as you can tell. But this is a very small number. I usually discard numbers with under 10 players from the data set on the whole, because once you drop under 10 players, the data is very sensitive to just a few players performing either very well or very poorly. Harlequins came out real hardcore this week with a 73.5% win rate. Again, with only 7 players. And I'm going to make a note that I've only tracked 22 players playing Harlequins since the start of when we began tracking data, essentially.
Yeah, so you know, we split time into 2 sections. There's AFC and BFC, and AFC is after Fight Club, and that's all we care about now.
Yeah.
Everything else you can ignore for the purposes of 40k. It didn't happen.
Essentially, yes. I don't care about historical data. It has no bearing whatsoever on what happens currently in the meta.
We haven't used it to make a point or anything.
No, definitely not.
That wouldn't be us. No, we would never use historical data.
And then for soup, which a lot of people love, so our fun Eldari soup, it's 58% for the win rate with only 4 players represented. So
imagine playing soup, dude. I would never.
I'm watching you, Anthony. I'm
No,
watching.
let's
you.
not.
I'm gonna personally be reviewing all of Anthony's lists for the foreseeable future to make sure his Mono Drukari actually becomes soup.
I'm Mono Drukari.
You are an Eldari player, you liar.
I took Herd the Prey, dude. You can only take that if you only have Drukari models.
Yeah, those traveling players just showed up and attached themselves to the army. True.
Yeah, they actually patrol 600 points.
Yeah, I just played an event with 600 points, and then 1,400 points at Clowns came out the Webway and beat the crap out of whoever I was playing.
And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about this week is movers and shakers. So there's this weird thing with Sisters of Battle players. So apparently every time I say they're good, the faction tanks the next week. And this week they did well. So maybe they're not dead this time, but maybe they are still dead. They're really Schrodinger's faction of every time I look at them, they die. But they had 3 top 10s, a top 4, and a win rate over 55%. So they have been doing well. And they did okay in some of our faction v faction data, which we'll talk about in a way. And unfortunately, Necron fans, there's a whole new tier just dedicated to the Necrons. It's the Necron tier. They did real bad this week, even though they had a top 10 and a top 4. They had a whole lot of losses to go alongside it. They were the faction that did the worst this week with over 10 players, and they had a 32.5% win rate. That is
fine.
That's bad, guys. Your faction is
low.
technically undead, but it is also dead.
Necrons just have this really weird. I feel like Necron players just play to the level of their opponent. Small GT, there's no point really trying. Big GT, go all out, beat the pants off of some custom players. That seems to be the way.
I think
Yeah,
Necrons are just only capable of scoring 70 points, and some weeks that works out to be enough to win, and some weeks it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. I think some people still also won't jump on the Flayed One bandwagon completely. And I think a 220 mans of Flayed Ones is probably the list that you have to play with if you bring like the Silent King along or Novak or both.
Yeah, but let's be real. Supply issues means that only like 2 people per continent can actually play 40 Flayed Ones at the moment, right? So
We can glue some sprue together next to a warrior setup and have flayed ones. They're close enough.
Definitely.
I don't know if you know about this, Anthony, but some people on this planet have what's called hobby standards.
Gross.
I know it's not something that me or you would be familiar with, but if you're playing Necrons, you're probably a faction diehard, which means that you probably care about what you're playing with.
That makes sense. I guess that's
Yeah.
a thing for other
Couldn't
people that aren't
couldn't
me.
be me, but
Yeah, same. Well, actually, I say that, but I have like nicely armies that I use.
Then the last mover for this weekend was Tyranids, which is bound to make Innes just super excited, I'm sure. So Tyranids have continued their path of vengeance from last week, where they also did well. I know you're not that excited, Innes. It's fine. They were the 3rd best faction, though, behind with over 10 players behind Tau and Custodes. Or behind, yeah, basically, with a 61.5% win rate. So they were 2nd, actually, best faction this week, not 3rd best faction. They didn't have the same number of wins, but they did have 6 top 10s and 3 top 4s. So they did really well from a placement point of view, and they did really well from a win percentage point of view as well. So they've kind of continued like kind of a rebound after the 1 week where they had a 40-ish% win rate, which is kind of interesting. And I think going into the new book, hopefully that kind of continues and we see them kind of around 55-ish
how
percent.
many Tyranids players were there this weekend?
10, exactly.
So yeah, it kind of makes sense that with the number of players you have, Crusher Stampede has a decent amount of variance to it, and then so do like the other lists. So if you only have a really small amount of players, it's fairly reasonable that you have a bad run. Once you start getting up to the number of players where they're actually able to like get that 61% win rate that they have generally had, then yeah, it makes sense that they're kind of doing the same thing they always have. They have an okay matchup into Custodes. Tyler's rough, so it makes sense that they're kind of falling into that slightly lower tier. But yeah, looking forward to seeing where Tyranids die off in the next couple of weeks and then are reborn in the ashes of whatever comes out in 3 weeks that we don't know about.
Yep. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about faction v faction data too, just from this week, and then we'll contextualize it in the whole. So Tyranids had a coin flip matchup essentially into Custodes from this week. So they won 50% of their games in that matchup. And then into Tau, they actually did surprisingly well. They won 60% of those matchups, which is kind of nice. So you have a faction that's actually doing pretty well. This is all this week's data, though. So again, I'm going to couch all these this faction v faction data with the fact that there weren't a lot of games played this week.
This is based on 6 tournaments. This is
Yep.
not a lot of games. When we add that into the overall whole, what could you have the data for the overall Tau versus Tyranids matchup?
I do actually, and I was about to pull it up to contextualize all this because I know everybody loves context. It's my favorite thing is nuance and context, and I know that that is the same for everyone else.
No, we don't like that here. Make reactionary statements that everybody can be mad at so we get clicks.
Tyranids had a 45% win rate into Tau overall. So
That's like not that bad.
It's really good. That's like double the average.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
really quite close actually. A 5% reduction in win rate is pretty close to balance. That would be okay under most standards. Like you can have factions that are good into other factions and still have a balanced game.
Hey, I bet that's what do you reckon? Like 90% of those games are just the Tyranids going first.
Maybe.
yeah.
I've heard some rumblings that game first win rate right now in the current mission set is 53%.
I
But
heard it's a lot worse than that. There are some missions hitting the 60s.
yeah,
Oh
I
man.
think that was the net was 53, but town custodies were over 70% win rates going first. I think one of
And I
them,
believe Tywin Custodes are the only factions with positive go second win rates.
yes, they were the only two factions with positive go second win rates. So there is some kind of problem in the current mission pack that's exacerbating the problems with going second. And it might partially be that we have two super factions that are just smashing everyone to tiny little pieces. Because
Yeah.
the two factions have reduced win rates by basically everyone by 5 to 8%.
I'm curious what would be doing that, because it feels often like I want to go second, but the win rates don't seem to pair that out super well.
I think in this sense, it's just because Tau especially can just blast off the table if they go first. There's not a
Mhm.
lot of you don't have a lot of ability to play around that. And as factions get stronger, I would say Crusher's very susceptible to this as well. It's a faction that if it goes first, it can just end the game turn one. When factions are strong enough to do that into other strong factions, it depresses the go second win rate because, well, if you're just going to go second against Crusher and get taken off the board, there's not a lot of recourse to that.
Yeah, so I mean, you have some of these factions, and even Custodes can jam right into your zone turn one and pop a lot of your hard targets, right? With jet bikes all armed with melta weapons. Suddenly, all of your big heavy stuff has disappeared behind a trail of always hitting, always wounding, basically, melta missiles, which is bad.
And then you get sometimes they just hit 10-inch charges on you, and it really sucks. Or you're playing one of the like quarters deployment missions, and they're in your deployment zone turn one. That one's fun too. Don't you love doing that against Custodes when they move 14 and the no man's land's 13,
Oh, I feel so bad.
and they redeployed into it with Castellan's Mark. So you even if you'd gone first, it wouldn't have helped.
Yeah.
It's why I never feel bad making Custodes players hit on 4-ups into light. It just makes me eternally happy making them hit with no rerolls to hit.
I don't feel bad making Custodes players do anything. Like,
It's
anything that I get to do to a custodian is money in the bank. Suffer forever.
Watch me ignore all those precious, precious invulnerable saves. I don't care if you have transhuman or cancel rerolls because I don't have any and I'm only strength 4.
I'm gonna use ignore invulns.
Aren't you
though.
also only AP2?
Yeah, I'm gonna use ignore invulns just out of spite. Take your armor save. You're not using your invuln. No.
I might actually. I'm not going to say that I'm against just spending 2 CP out of spite sometimes.
Oh yeah, I'll do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna need the CP because I'm playing light and I don't really do anything now. I just run around and shoot. I'm gonna walk up on them and I'm gonna ignore their invulnerable save and make them take armor. Just because we talked about it.
I think the only thing I want to pay CP for is just to run away, like Cerberus Raiders do. Pay a CP to run away 6 inches and be like, now make your charge.
You only need
Yeah.
5 all game. I start with 8. We'll be fine.
Who needs to regenerate CP? Who needs stratagems, especially when none of your stratagems affect any of the stuff that you want to use to do anything?
That's right, baby. We're gonna ignore those invulns and make them sad or whatever. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, derailed
Yeah,
it.
it'd
With
be really
these
good if troops were
tips.
core. That would really help them.
Yeah, would do.
Real tears in us. Real tears at the most fundamental typo in that book. Somehow, GW, you managed to forget core on the only troop choice in an 8 data sheet faction. You made a mistake.
Cult Mechanicus don't have it either, and they're a real faction too.
Listen, dude, bikes are the only thing that's core for Harlequins. I'm
That's all
sure
you
that's
need,
on
right?
purpose.
And bikes have like maybe 3 stratagems that affect them, and none of them are like actual utility. Well, none of them are actual offensive strats. They're like,
No, Blade Storm works on them.
oh, there you go. Bladestorm. You can use Bladestorm on bikes.
Yeah, but then you're not using Haywire, and like I'm fine with that.
I mean,
Haywire.
I don't think I'm going to use Haywire. It doesn't affect monsters, and
Ugh.
everybody's playing monsters. Nobody plays vehicles in this.
You're gonna run. You're gonna play into a whole bunch of Storm Surges and be really sad you don't have Haywire.
That was Innes with the Tyranid simp that he said he wasn't gonna do. He's just pre-shilling
What
for
Tyranids?
Tyranids.
I'm
He's
using
like,
Goliath. I'm using Goliath trucks at the moment. Vehicles.
I understand. I believe you. Not really at all. I feel like there's a lot of lies happening.
Very skeptical.
I would never, ever lie to our wonderful audience.
Yeah.
I mean, but you would lie to me, Innes.
Yeah.
And that's really who's being lied to right now.
That's
Me.
fair.
So that is really it for Tau stats and Custode stats for the week. I'm going to continue shouting into the void about how broken they are until somebody fixes something.
We are officially past the date of the leaked data slate. It's not coming, guys.
Yeah, and thanks, Inez.
Oh man! Shout out to the man that leaked that fake data set. What an absolute hero to get the community going.
My favorite part, though, was finding out like the cutoff for the original restrictions, and the Plague Burst Crawlers being a 0 to 1 troops choice unit was like me staring at it and be like, I know Warcoms would make this mistake, but I don't think they would also make this mistake, which maybe says something really bad about Warcom's quality control.
Well, you
but
have
also
to
says
remember,
something about
last time they said that the Necron Obelisk was an Eldar unit, so
Yeah. The best part about that whole thing was Primaris Lieutenants being 1 to 3, like being minimum 1. Like you have to take 1.
well, they are if you're playing Iron Hands.
True.
True. I mean, they just released rules so you can play the Autarch from the cover art from the Eldari book officially now. So you can actually use the weapons that is shown on the cover of the book. Which when I first heard that they did that, I was like, guys, no, that's really pretty art, but you also can't even equip an Autarch that way.
But they fixed that and not Harlequin troops not having core, so it must be intentional, right?
Intentional, that's it.
I guess it is intentional, and it's intentional and making me eternally sad.
Good. Speaking of being eternally sad, let's talk more stats.
Okay, so we're going to go back into the faction v faction data just a little bit here. We're going to cover the whole month now. So I'm going to tell you guys, Custodes only have one bad matchup right now, and it is Tau. Tau have a 52% win rate into Custodes. That's covering the whole month. Tau actually have a few bad matchups, primarily into Chaos Demons. And they have a coin flip matchup into Chaos as a super faction, so into Chaos Soup.
Those damn Plague Bearers with their -2 to hit and no rerolls.
And then now
for those Tau.
They also have a bad matchup into Harlequins, which is interesting. So they only have a 40% win rate into Harlequins.
Is that over 5 games?
That is the whole thing. I don't have a game count on this, so I'd have to look at it again to double check how many games they've played against them. Yeah, Seth, Tau are not the problem.
No, Seth, you're the problem.
So, folks, it's okay to play an OP faction. You should be self-aware enough to understand that your faction is OP and bad for game balance. It's okay. It's okay to play an overpowered faction.
Look, if you start asking 4K players to have self-awareness as well as understanding statistics, we're not going to have anybody left.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
it. We're gonna.
I mean,
those are not overlapping Venn diagrams.
I mean, that's fair. And we can look at real quick. I can just pull up the games from this week for Harlequins, and we can talk about it as well, just to see what the matchup looks like just from new rules. So into Tau, it's basically all from this week then. And Harlequins have a 60% win rate into Tau. And then they have a lot of 0% win rates just as a result of them not playing many games. So we're not even going to bother talking about those right now.
That's statistics. 1 game played is math.
Yeah, 1 game played is math. Yes, you can have 1 game and get addition.
It is definitely as relevant as the month data, and we should definitely use that to draw conclusions that we can use as clickbait in YouTube videos and shorts.
Oh, I have a feeling that I'm going to get put onto signals again as some kind of negative for saying that context and nuance is important in Warhammer 40k and statistics. I just have that feeling.
If you're not careful, you'll end up on like spiky bits or something.
Gotta be careful.
That's how I know that I've truly hit the big time, when I have a clickbait article on spiky bits that I didn't write.
Yeah, that's something. Big time, small time, it's something.
But other than that, since it was such a quiet week, we don't really have a ton of other statistics. We're going to try moving forward to track some of the trends that are inside of the data. So we're going to look week to week, and we're going to see how a lot of these win rates go. So hopefully moving forward, we'll have the ability to show you all some graphics, and we'll work with Cliff and with Curie, and we'll work on tracking some of this data and making really good graphics for you, and then hosting
figuring
them
out how
online.
our software works.
Yeah, so we're going to figure out a lot of ways to make the data better for you, and then we'll present it to you. So you may not be able to have access to the full data set because it's full of personal identifiers, but we can show you all the meaningful data and a good way to interpret it, and hopefully in good visualizations. Because I will tell you that that there are a lot of people who make visualizations of the data, and I think there are some lessons that can be taken from scientific fields for how to present data in a way that's fully interpretable.
Much like everything else, we're just going to do it better.
Yeah, basically. I'm going to use that PhD 49 days away to make better figures for y'all with Cliff. That's my plan.
And frankly, guys, you want anything Cliff makes. Cliff is magical.
It's true. He is by far the most magical member of this cast.
Okay, I think we're going to call it there at the end of the stats section because we are definitely degenerating. It turns out, guys, unfortunately, on small weeks, the stats section kind of just evolves into us talking a little bit about stuff around the stats. What I am going to do is I'm going to do the quick plugs very quickly. You may have noticed today, if you check the YouTube feed, Colin did put out an announcement about how all of the YouTube subscriber things is working. So you can check that out. I don't have the full details. I've not actually had a chance to watch that. I was stuck at work. But if you check that video out, you should be able to find all the details. What I can say is that if you want to support us directly, you can do that at patreon.com/bestintabletop. That'll get you access to the Discord where you can interact with all of us. We have spent the entirety of today talking about a bunch of Tyranid stuff, which has been really good fun. Been developing some lists, talking about some stuff about that. No reason why. Just Tyranids came up. It's quite interesting today. I think I broke Anthony.
A terrible liar is what Innes is. Just a terrible liar.
Terrible liar. Yeah. So if you want to support us, you can do that. That is $10 a month at the $10 US a month at the base fee. I believe it's like £6 UK. I actually don't pay that much attention to how much I pay for that, which is horrifying, and I should really make better case of my finances. But yeah, that is where you can follow us. What you can also do if you want to support us is in the corner just laughing at me. You can hit like on the YouTube video. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which will get you live notifications for whenever any of the videos from us or the people on the network are going live. You'll also see all the announcements and all that good stuff. And you can also, what would really help us is leave a comment flaming Nathan, because that helps with the algorithm, that helps with discoverability, and we will do our best to respond to anything you post there. Unless it's really stupid, in which case we might just leave it and make Nathan deal with it.
No.
That's usually what happens. Also, it's like $100 a month Australian or something like that. I think that's how that currency works, right?
100, 1, 2, 3,000. I don't know.
Yeah, some kind of number for Australian dollars, I think.
I think all the Australians just pull for one Patreon fee, and then they have one account that they pass around.
I think they might do that anyway, just because it's unethical and that's on brand.
Okay, we are going to move on to the results of the week. So I have 3 events on my list to talk about this week. We have the Scorched Earth Open from the US, we have the Glasshammer GT from the UK, and the Blood and Iron GT from Canada, all of which were 28 or more players and 5 rounds, and all of which were run by Custodes, as we mentioned in the stats section. And as always, we're going to go big to small. So if you're one of the small events, you're going to have to wait to the end. You got to listen to the whole section for that clickbait. We should maybe do the other way around. People want to hear about the most interesting events, so we make them stay longer.
Does bigger necessarily mean more interesting when it comes to events?
It means more people were there that want to hear us talk about the tournament they were at.
I'll keep an eye on viewership and see how the impact goes.
Yeah, well, we're gonna do it big to small, and then next week we'll try small to big, and we'll see if that has any impact on the viewership retention. Because it's all about the algorithm, we do everything for the algorithm.
Praise be.
Okay, let us start with the Scorched Earth Open. I believe this was in Arizona, where they have what I have been described as a weird meta. What I am told for this one is that they allowed Sagittara Misericordias to just be free, which is terrifying to me. Genuinely terrifying.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know. It said in the article they were free, so that must mean they're free for everybody. Shout out to someone pointed this out to me though. Shout out to the guy in 8th place whose name I don't know, but I will check when I go on BCP, who just didn't use those points, just paid for them anyway. You're a legend and I love you.
Yeah. Hell yeah, that guy.
Okay. So the Scorched Earth Open was won by Lee Harris playing Custodes Gold Stuff. So this is Emperor's Children, Emperor's Chosen even. We are looking at 9 Sagittarum and a squad of regular guys. Squad of Bodyguard, no Dreadnoughts, no tanks, standard 9 bikes. All the good stuff you'd expect. Trajan, Bike Captain. Yeah, there's meant to be a section on my document where I have like why this list is interesting, but when I saw all 3 lists for Custodes this week, I just didn't put that section in.
Yep.
Do you know whenever sometimes you read those Goonhammer articles and they get to that bit where it's why it's interesting and the answer is just it isn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for them for doing that. It used to always make me laugh, but now I realize it's just a coping mechanism because
Yeah.
there are only so many ways to put 50 words together to say why something is interesting that just isn't.
I was on the receiving end of that once.
Mhm. As
That was part
somebody
of the
who
problem.
has as somebody who's written a lot of these meta-analysis articles and reviewed a lot of lists like this, there's a certain point where you start using copy and paste a lot from previous material you've written because you still want to explain the list. And you still really try to mine one interesting thing out of it, but after about 6 or 7 identical Custodes lists, you're kind of tapped out.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
tracks.
there definitely comes a point where if you were running if you were running our articles this week through what's it called? The Turnitin, you would definitely be getting plagiarism flags.
It's true.
Oh yeah.
At least 80% every week.
Okay, interesting things on this list. This guy also paid for his Misericordias, and I'm proud of him for that. But instead, his list is 27 points over. So if you're reading the art, if you're reading it, and that's why he's 27 points over because he decided he didn't have to pay for his Misericordias by the event rule. Yeah, he's running Wardens. He's running Shield Captain Donigo Jet Bike with. I guess this is interesting. He's running -1 to hit instead of extra attacks. That's all I got. Well done, Lee.
Ooh.
Congratulations on your win. We're going to cover the second place list from this tournament as well because it's the biggest tournament of the weekend, which was so this one had 2 undefeated players, and that was Tyler Hepler playing Tyranids. And I have to say I quite like this Crusher Stampede list. It's one of the when you think of like what Anthony would play if he played Crusher Stampede, it's Malanthrope, Swarmlord, Maliceptor, 5 Heroes, and a Prime.
Hell yeah. Also, what's that mean?
No troops, just monsters.
Hell yeah.
Just all violence, Anthony. Just all violence.
I'm always skeptical when Ennis says this is something Anthony would do. Every time he says it and he like looks around, he's like, "Well, you know what I mean."
It's
No,
What
definitely
does
it's
that mean?
not yeah, it's definitely not totally code for something. Definitely not.
it's 5
100%
tough. It's
not.
5 toughness 8 monsters that can make the strength of incoming attacks -1. So like salvo launchers win them on 5s, which I think is just cool.
That makes me
It's
happy.
pure distilled violence. That's all I got for you. Okay, so congratulations to Lee and Tyler for the Scorched Earth Open. Yeah, just quickly from those fronts, yeah, it's really interesting to see like the next 2 players of that event are both Tau players and then another Turner player. And then like as we start to fall down the lower ranking 4-0s, we see the interesting list pop up like Goffs, Deathwing, Custodes, and then another Tau list. So like there are still some lists that are like not the top tier making the 4-0s. They're just scoring less points when they're doing it, which means that they're not hitting like the 4-0 and then getting the opportunity to win. They're like losing a game early, like to one of the better factions, and then beating up on the middle tiers. So there's still lists that can hit the 4-1, hit the 5-0 that aren't the best factions right now. So if you're feeling disheartened at the moment on the meta wise, like pay attention to the fact that if you win 80% of your games at a tournament, you're still doing significantly above average. And you should never be like aiming for 5-0 is all well and good, but only a couple of people every tournament can go 5-0. Going 4-1 is still really impressive. So congratulations to everybody who managed that in an incredibly hostile meta. That's all I got. That's my positivity. I'm mined out. Like I can't do it. Custodes, man. And it's hurting me. Okay, next up we have the Glasshammer GT in the UK. This one was super interesting in that it was using the new Harlequins rules, and we had a couple of really strong like traditional Harlequins players in this one. So we had Vic VJ and Ben Jones, who are both really strong UK players. One of them, Vic, is one of the Dice Down guys, who you may know from being like Malik and Connor Barkowitz's team, and Ben Jones is one of the Vanguard Tactics guys. So that's Steve Box's team. So yeah, they were both playing like mixed Harlequins lists. I believe between them they had 12 Void Waivers. In case you were wondering if they were good, yeah, they are. But the first place list of this one and the only undefeated was Jack Tight's Adeptus Custodes. Did you know it was coming? Can you guess what it is? Anybody? Any guesses?
It's Emperor's Chosen golden stuff, right?
Ooh, maybe he
Yeah.
took bikes. Maybe he's a real risk taker and he got some bikes in there.
Okay.
Did he take Trajan Valorous?
Let's
That's a real
let's go.
gutsy play.
Let's go from the
Maybe
top.
maybe an
Inquisitor.
Inquisitor.
Inquisitor. Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike. Trajan Valorous. 3 Custodian Guard. 2 Squads of Sagittarium. A Contemptor Achilles. Ooh, dicey. Oh, that's uncommon. 3 Custodian Wardens. A Vexos Praetor in Alrus Terminator armor. That's unusual. not always in Allarus Terminator armor. Only 6 bikes and a Caladius.
That's a
Nice.
list. I have a 2-up ballistic skill. I have a 4-up invuln. Hell yeah.
4
Hey,
up
hey,
skill, no
hey.
pain against mortal wounds.
Caladius and
Sweet.
Achilles only have 5 up invulns.
Oh, my deepest condolences to those vehicles that are hyper efficient. I'll send them flowers and something. I don't know.
Here's something interesting. It's exactly 100 power level.
That's cool. Nice, dude.
It's not exactly 2,000 points though. That was. I think you missed a trick there. You probably could have. You can't find someone to spend 2 points, but I wish you
If
had.
someone can win a tournament with a list that's both exactly 100 power level and 2,000 points, like on the nose for both, I will send you a GW gift.
I'm gonna go back through all my event lists and check.
No, you have to do it now, like from this point forward.
Okay, from this point forward, if you win a tournament, GT size or bigger, right? 20, 28
Yep.
players, 5 rounds, with a
Yep.
list that's both exactly 2,000 points and 100 power level. And you can design your list so that it's exactly that now. And in fact, I would encourage you to. Anthony will send you a gift. He doesn't promise it's a good gift, but a gift.
You'll get something from the Games Workshop store. Just depends on what you do it with.
It might be like 5 bases, but it's still a gift, and you should be proud of that.
Oh, it'll be better than that. It will most likely be something related to your army, at least vaguely.
Cool. I will shout out Christopher Radford, who managed to pull off both with the team name Savvy Submariners, the Ultimate Submarine, lost game 1 and then smashed his next 4 to come
Wow.
second with Space Wolves. I will quickly touch on the list. It is a successors list with Hecaton and 3 squads of Wolfguard and 3 squads of Wolfen. I think Wolfen making a bit of a comeback. They seem to be
3 Squads of Wolfen is super scary. I don't want to fight that at all.
yeah. Surprisingly, Wolfen with the Thunderhammers on 4 and the Frost Claws on the Sergeant, only 145 points.
Yeah, they just keep making the points lower.
Yeah, they've not made Wolfen better,
No, but eventually they'll be 20 points and ruin
but
the
they're now
game. So,
they're now cheaper than 5 Vanguard veterans. So
oh my god, they are. How the mighty have fallen.
I know, right? So yeah, props to you, Chris. He went down round 1. I will quickly check what he lost to round 1 because I'm willing to bet it's Tower Custodes.
You're gonna make me sad for free, Innes.
I only do it because I hate you.
Oh man.
It's a real challenging
Yeah,
relationship that we have as cast members.
Yeah, guess what he lost to? 6 broadsides, 10 crisis.
You didn't even need to tell us, Ines. You could have kept that a secret that we never
Yeah.
needed to know about.
I'm probably almost as disappointed as he was when he drew that round 1.
But for reference, so he scored 474 battle points, which is, I believe, the most of the tournament. In
Woo!
second place, losing a game. Third place, 428. This is actually my shout out list of the week. This is Ben Jones's Harlequins list. Just to give you an example, guys, of what is showing up as a Harlequins list at the moment. This is it's one of each of the characters. So a solid little grab bag there. With a bunch of names I don't recognize that all sound like kink things. Like Prince of Sins and Lord of Crystal Bones.
Wow, I've never had that in my head now, but now I've got to title
Yeah,
a
I
list
can't unsee
appropriately.
that. Thanks for that.
It's gonna be something like the Light Dungeon or something like now. Like that now.
My next
There ain't no
list-
light in this dungeon.
There ain't there's definitely a lot of this is the darkest dungeon.
So yeah, sorry everybody for that mental image, but it really did just pop into my head. So yeah, we've got one of each of the characters, and then 5 troop squads who are all grab bagged with 2 fusion pistols, and then one of each of the special weapons, and then 2 blades. Which I think is a fairly standard way to do it. It gets you access to all the stratagems. Also gets you it's not too cheap. Those guys are only 90 points. In light, you can fly about in the boats, advancing and shooting those pistols, which is really solid. And then we have 3x2 Void Reavers, which are all to the lasts, and then 6 Star Weavers. Yeah, it's so I would say that that's a fairly. It's not anything super out there. It's one of each of the units, one of each of the characters, and then 6 boats, and 5 squads. Like it does what it says on the tin. It is a fairly standard. We will probably see iteration on this that like skews for metas. Maybe you want more Void Reavers, maybe you want less, depending on what's good at the moment. But expect to see something vaguely in this shell going about. I will quickly check what Ben lost to. His loss was in round 3. Makes my job a lot easier because it'll probably be up the top tables. He also lost to that Tau list with broadsides. So there you go. Tau definitely. So I definitely think that's something that's relevant to touch on is that Tau definitely still have the firepower to push through the lights hitting on 4s because they're generally only hitting on 3s at best anyway. The no reroll sucks, but they don't always get rerolls.
Yep.
So yeah, don't expect just because you're playing light to all win against Tau, broadsides will still F your day up.
Yep.
And you don't like airburst. Nobody likes airburst, and your Shadow Tier can't be everywhere.
She really tries though. But
She
you
really
can't.
tries, especially in
tries.
light with the 9-inch bubbles. But you physically can't be everywhere with the model, especially if you're playing a mission like Recover the Relics or Tidy Conviction, where the objectives are really spread out. I don't know what mission they played in, but I'm just going to say that it was probably one where he couldn't put everything in the Shadow Tier bubble because objective scoring is a thing you have to do too.
True.
You got to score
Okay.
points if you want to win the games.
Nathan is going to handle the next tournament, so I can give my voice a break.
Yep. So we are going to talk about Blood and Iron, which was a tournament in Canada with 28 players across 5 rounds. And then the winner was Zachary Prinsloo, whose name I probably pronounced correctly, who was playing Custodes, Golden stuff. So we're really
Is
just
there
talking.
a theme?
We're really just talking about an Emperor's Chosen list again, except there was something really interesting about this list that I haven't seen in any other Custodes lists to this point. They took an assassin. Not only did they take an assassin, they took an Eversur assassin, which to me is like the weirdest assassin choice of all of them. Because I would think if you took an assassin, you'd take the Calidus assassin, because then you can kind of just mess with your opponent's CP a bit. I mean, the Vindicare assassin's a liability as a sniper unit that needs direct line of fire. But an Eversur in place of, say, an Inquisitor is the most interesting part of this list. Because otherwise it's a no bite captain, which is kind of interesting, but a shield captain and Alaris Terminator armor with basically the same things that you would have given
It's
the
Mr.
bite
Worldwide.
captain. Except, yeah, you got Mr. Worldwide. So you got the Praetorian plate Alaris Terminator armor because he can be everywhere. And then Trajan Valoris, of course, because you can't go anywhere without
He
the
auto
auto.
populates into the list, yeah.
It's true. You might as well start your list design at 1840 points. Shadowkeepers collects us forever, you say, Art of War 40k.
Does give you access to double fight lasts.
Yeah, I guess I totally forgot that Calexuses existed, which is both good and bad probably for Calexuses, because maybe that's the point.
Shadowkeepers also probably want the psychic defense a bit more than the other Emperor's Chosen lists because
Yep.
you're not getting that like Thousand Suns. It's a good thing to swap into. Obviously, remember that just because it's an Eversor assassin on the list, you're more than capable of spending 2 CP to swap that assassin out for
Yeah,
any
you can
other
switch it around.
because you can just Pokeball them about. But the Eversor as the baseline choice, I think we can probably touch on that a little bit at the end. We can maybe bounce some ideas back and forth, Anthony. But do you want to finish running us through the list, Nathan?
Sure. I mean, outside of that, it's a pretty standard list. I just closed it because I wanted to talk about the Harlequins list instead because I didn't want to talk about more gold stuff. But
Well, I want to talk about the Eversor, so
I understand that you want to talk about this Eversor. So there were 2 Guardian squads with each with a spear and then 2 shield toters, a unit of prosecutors probably to do actions. 3 units of Alaris custodians, including 2 3-man units and then 1 1-man unit.
no, it's
One of them's a
wardens,
wardens. I'm sorry.
yeah, for bodyguard.
At a certain point, my brain starts to shut off as I read Custodes. And then we have
It's
a
the same unit 10 times.
It is, and then it's a Vexillus Praetor with Impregnable Mind for the deny, I believe, and then the
And counts as 4 models for objectives, which is nasty.
and then the Castellan's mark, and then he's got the Vexilla Magnifica, so that's a redeploy for the Castellan's mark, and then 3 units of Virtus Praetors, all with Misericordia, all with salvo launchers. So it's a pretty standard list. The only real big change is that assassin. No bite captain's a little bit different, so that's kind of neat. But otherwise, it's most of the standard support
Also,
pieces that you see.
he had 5 points spare and opted not to put the 3rd shield in his squad, so he had access to the -1 to wound strat, and I'm disappointed in him for that. Okay, Anthony, Eversor Assassin, talk to me. Why would you run an Eversor? Do you know what an Eversor does?
I know an Eversor hits you a whole bunch. That's my entire knowledge of an Eversor is that it
Cool.
can
So,
charge better.
The
I think.
main gimmicks with the Eversors is that they do 3d6 charges, and when they kill an infantry model, they get another attack, and that doesn't generate additionals. Why would you want to run something that's 3d6 and charges backfield stuff pretty well?
You hate elves.
Or other people's prosecutors.
That's too. Yeah. So I would imagine in that matchup, if you know that your opponent has that, you just go, "Oh no," and you'd leave guard back there or something.
Yeah, but then that means that you're playing, 2,000 points against 1,800 points. That sounds good to me. especially when you're
True.
playing custodes. Yeah, I quite like the Eversword tech here. It's just a little bit of screw about in your opponent's backfield that custodes don't normally get access to. They are generally very fairly in your face. The Eversword is threatening backfield a lot more than a standard because you're not going to deep strike like a squad of bikes or anything like that. The most you're ever really going to be seeing is like a squad of 3 Alaris, and they're not super common. So yeah, it's good to see that between the squad of 3 Alaris and the Eversword Assassin, this list actually has a lot of backfield threat that customs lists don't normally have, which I think is actually worth mentioning. That between that and then Mr. Worldwide dropping down, if you try to deal with those Alaris with combat, you can suddenly have 400 points worth of stuff in your backfield. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. All right, Nathan, go talk about the Harlequins list. I know you want to.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited about Harlequin stuff. I
Because
can't
this
help
list also
myself.
went undefeated. This is Billy
It's true.
Backhurst's Harlequins, who had a draw with a Tau Empire list in round 4.
Yep. So they got an 80-point draw with the Tau Empire list. I think this list is kind of interesting because it does something a little different than a lot of what you see
It's
proposed online
formatted
at the
so
moment.
nicely too.
It is. It's formatted perfectly so that it's really easy to read. So I really, really appreciate you, Bailey Backhurst. I really do. So
And as
it's
always, guys, all of the lists for all of these tournaments are available on Best Coast Pairings. Please do check them out if you want to be able to read the lists for full and not just hear us read them to you.
Yep. So what we've got here is a dark mask. So it's a person after Anthony's heart with dark going forwards with that's extra AP and then fight on
Oh,
death and
yeah.
melee if they've never fought before. This person brought a troop master with Kregorik's Rose, which is the relic reroll wounds kiss, with a foot in the future, which is the auto 6-inch charge, player of the dark, and then veiled king as their pivotal role. Then you have a
That's
shadow.
definitely a kink thing.
It is definitely a king thing. And then his shadows here with Fog of Dreams and Twilight Pathways. Twilight Pathways is kind of an interesting choice for a power. Double move without the charge is a little bit different than usual. But I assume it's probably to get some of these larger player squads that they brought along into place or to move some stuff around just to get it out of the way. And then you have a Solitaire with Prince of Sins. Again, another kink thing, which is -1 to hit all the time and then no rerolls to hit against them. And then there
I'm
are
gonna deny it with the solitaire. It's like just a king thing. There's no way it's anything else.
I mean, there's a lot of mask wearing that goes on anyway, so we know it's some kind of
Like
I
their
can't remember
weapons
the
are
name of
called
the
Caress,
movie.
Embrace, and Kiss. Like what else?
Yeah.
do
It's
you think
definitely a
gonna
kink
be?
thing.
I
So there are
guess.
6-player squads in here, 3 5-mans. One of them has just a kiss. One of them has each of the weapons, including 3 kisses. Then the interesting part here for me, which I don't see in a lot of lists, is there are actually 3 10-man player units in this army. And in an SMS airburst fragmentation projector like meta, to me personally, 10-man player squads seem just like they're going to immediately die. But I'm assuming they probably get put into deep strike or strategic reserve, so they at least instantaneously detonated. Then you've got a pretty standard triple star weaver and then 8 void weavers. I think you're going to see a lot of void weavers. I'm surprised you see quite so many in dark since they don't benefit as much from some of the dark tech. But they
They
do
hit
have
pretty
a
hard
bunch
in
of
combat
attacks
with
at
Dark,
AP1.
right?
They are strength
Yeah.
5, AP1, 4 attacks apiece. So 12 attacks on the charge hitting on 3s at strength 5. It's not bad, especially at AP1. You're wounding those custodes on 4s. Can pick up a lot of chaff if you need to. That Eversor assassin is probably never hurting one of them.
With Twilight Pathways, are you able to use the after advance and get 3 up invulnerable save strat twice?
1 second.
We will double check that, but I like this
No, you
list.
can't because you use the strategy in the movement phase, so only one. So you can get one of those squads to 3 up invulnerable save, which is pretty nasty. So if you're sending them in like fairly piecemeal with Mirror Architect, you can keep them fairly back. So airbursts have to be pretty close, and then you can pounce on them, draw them into the open for Void Weavers. I see the play there. He's clearly got the tech. He managed to pull a really good draw with Tau there, scoring 80 points. There's probably a few clutch moments in that game, one way or the other, that gave one of them that could have given either of them the win. But it's good to see that there's a faction that can definitely take it to Tau, even without running the full anti-Tau tech of Light.
Yeah, and I'd assume Shield from Harm comes in clutch here. I'm guessing that this tournament ruled that players have core so that they can be protected by Shield from Harm. Shield from Harm gives them -1 to wound.
Why would they rule not raw? That's horrifying.
We both know, Innes. We both know.
Why we both know what?
Well, obviously, I know much more than you, is what I'm learning. Through the
Just
course
like
of
how
this
Phoenix Kings
episode.
break Strand of Fate and Phoenix Lords break Strand of Fate, and the Solitaire stops you getting luck, and the
Dude,
rules.
you just take out your Webway gates and you deploy them like this. You just
Yeah.
and
And if you want to do that, your troops don't get core. That's what I'm saying.
Every single pet peeve of mine is being brought to the fore at the same time, and it's too much for my brain. There's like
So what you need to
a
do
lot of
is send
anger
Nathan a
happening.
DM telling him how much you should be playing Raw with Harlequins.
yeah. You get your
Watch
Mono Drukari out, and you put your 1,400 points on Harlequin.
you make sure you
That's-
put that in BCP as
That's not
Drukari.
even raw, Anthony. That's just you making me mad on purpose.
Okay, so that is the Blood and Iron Warhammer 40k 2-day. We will give a quick shout out to Mike, who's one of the Patreons for BiffBod, who did ask us to cover that one specifically, and all I told him was, if it makes the cut, we'll cover it, and it did make the cut, so we're very happy to cover it for you.
Woo!
Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, we're not going to cover something that doesn't make the cut just because someone that we know was at it, even if it would be funny, unless it's an RTD we specifically were. Unless it's something we specifically are at, because it's funnier if we cover it and we just have double standards that way. Yeah.
They did rule it as having core.
Next time we won't be covering them. Okay, that is going to do it for our event coverage section. So what I'm going to do is quickly give a shout out for the Patreon stuff and the plug again. So as always, if you've enjoyed what we're doing, remember to like, comment, subscribe, flame Nathan, all that good stuff. You can check us out at patreon.com/bestintabletop. And you can also, I believe, pretty soon do the YouTube, what's it called? YouTube supporter? I actually don't know. Check out Colin's video. Check out Colin's video on the feed. That should be posted on the 15th of March. So you should be able to see that. Colin posted a video on the feed that will cover all the details about how we are doing the subscriber content. And in chat, it says it was rules core. Yeah, thank you, Nathan. Yep, so that is that. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into our meta breakdown for a little bit. And because we are at a very interesting time in 40k. So, Anthony, talk to me about what you think's happening. Like, we're at the end of it. We're at the end of a meta. We have just seen probably, I would say it's probably more like 2 months of Custodes dominance and a month of Tau dominance is pretty rough, pretty much. And we're about to see a big shake with that again. We've got the Tyranids Codex coming, and we've got Eldar have now released, and we've seen half a week of their data because not every event was allowing them this week. Yeah, how do you feel about how the last month and a half has been in 40k?
It's been painful. I mean, like, I was playing by all normal margins a very powerful army, and sometimes when I would play one of the top two, I would just get blasted. And that obviously doesn't feel great, but now even just playing the mixed list, where I was basically playing, 600 points that should have just been more clowns, like the the power increase has been real noticeable and definitely feels like it puts you, it's weird, like you're definitely not playing with as much straightforward gas as those two lists. Like you definitely, as clowns, it never felt like at any point that I just like walk up and like blow my opponent off the board. I was never like, poof, you're gone. But there's definitely like, if you're, and I'm not a very patient person typically, but even like the patience that I was able to exercise was enough to be like, okay, we can hang back, we can do things. It's a little more like engaging rather than the alternative of like when Jakari first came out. Obviously that was like an insane power spike because I was going from Blood Angels to them, and that difference was night and day. You would just run at people and destroy them and be like, we did it, yay. Harlequins don't do that. The lack of rerolls on either side of the equation, like hit or wound for the most part, the hit on 3s, wound on 5s most of the time, like there's not super often where you're just like, and you're dead now. You have to definitely keep the, in Harlequin fashion, you have to keep the performance up for 5 turns or you just die.
So basically, it's a faction that does a lot more playing the game than like the previous Drukari builds were.
Yeah, you're definitely in it more. Your opponent might not feel super great the whole time, but they're definitely alive for a lot longer. And they might be like chipped and bloodied and wounded, but they're like playing the game with you and using their models as opposed to just being like, all right, everybody goes back in the case.
Yeah, I will say for on my end, it's definitely been. I've had 2 events in the current ecosystem, and I played across 11 games, Custodes 3 times, and Tau 3 times. So yeah, it's been about half of my games. Yeah, it's definitely felt like playing, like, with a little bit of a hand behind your back. I've been playing Gene Caught and Crusher Stampede. Crusher Stampede definitely felt a lot better because you just have the raw power there that if you go first, you can really capitalize on it. Playing Gene
Right.
Caught into them was miserable. It felt like you had to make every play basically perfectly or as close to it as you can reasonably achieve as a human being playing 40K. And then they just do whatever they wanted to make a bunch of mistakes and kill you anyway because you're made of paper and they're custodes and Tau.
Yep.
It was a really, I don't know, I don't want to say it's less fun than when Drakari were really strong because it's not. When Drakari were really strong, you just kind of died, and it felt like there was nothing you could do about it. At least against Tyrant Custodes, it feels like you can kind of outmaneuver them a little bit. Drakari probably, I think, felt worse for me personally, just because the way they played the game was so directly on the same axis I wanted to play it, whereas the other two, I feel like I can go around them a little bit.
Yep.
Um,
Tau a little
yeah,
less. I
it's
feel it really depends on your terrain. If you can go around Tau, they have like they're
yeah
so
for sure.
fast and their guns are so good that it's hard to like play the edges against them. But custodes, you can just like kill the bikes and run away.
Yeah, I more mean when I say play around them, I mean like I can find avenues of playing the game that don't involve directly just stat checking them.
Right.
Um, Whereas with Dracari, it just kind of felt like you stat checked them or they stat checked you, and there was nothing in between. Like the success I found playing into Dracari was, I'm going to drop in 30 Devil Gaunts. You can't kill 30 Devil Gaunts. And that was good fun. But yeah, and not before I've killed all your raiders and everything inside them, except the core of the Archon at the back that can please feel free to stand there all game. Against Dark Custodes, it's like you got to go through the big stuff. The tanky stuff is the stuff that's dealing the damage, whereas against Dracari, it at least kind of died.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's definitely been an interesting couple of months. I don't know how you felt, Nathan, and the more like doing RTTs and stuff like that kind of end, or running events that you've been doing as well. How has it felt for the general community, your end?
So RTTs are kind of weird, right? So, um, the reason why we don't include RTTs in our statistics is that they're kind of strange. They're really susceptible to what your local meta is like. And a lot of local events don't necessarily have good terrain. I mean, you can't say that all GTs have good terrain, but a lot of RTTs are running a little bit leaner on a lot of materials that you want at a GT sized event. For us, we have a lot of really pretty high quality terrain at the RTTs that are run by this local group. They spent a lot of time making terrain to try to get it to like GW board ish standards. And I mean, playing at more of a middle table level than Innis and Anthony has shown me that like Town Custos are probably the most challenging map traps that I've played. And even playing Harlequins now mixed with Drukari or pure Harlequins, the challenge that I've had a lot of the time is that with Harlequins, you're still running T3 bodies and you can still make a mistake and you get punished for it as a Harlequins player. There's only so much false durability that you can play with before your army just kind of gets smacked off the table, which was my most recent experience when I made a misplay early in a game. And then, even though I picked up the majority of the battle suits over the course of the game, I had basically nothing left by the end of turn 3 because I had made a few overly aggressive mistakes against a Tau Crisis Suit army. And I played into Crusher a few times with just pure Drakari, and I never had really a bad experience. I don't actually think Crusher is that bad. There are definitely some builds of it that can feel a lot worse. Like if you get a Harpy in your backline and all of a sudden you have like 6 mortal wounds spitting onto a character and they just pop like a little balloon and then you've got no captain rerolls. I mean, I'd love to see that happen to Ethereals. I won't lie. Just it would only roll onto drones, but it would still amuse me to watch that happen.
No, if they've Ethereal's run a lot of double marker light, that's only 6 wounds, baby.
Yeah,
Ooh,
they
that's
just
actually
die.
right. Wow, you can just well, can they still throw it to one other unit, or is that only
It's
attack?
not damage.
Oh man,
So
Mortal
yes,
wounds,
you can
bro.
absolutely pop an ethereal.
mm,
I've
that
never pulled
makes
it
me
off. I
really
have killed one
excited.
with a Kellermorph. Killing one with a Kellermorph was really good fun. There's this really neat trick as well where if they're running Onva, he is not and they're playing Farsight allies. Onva has Tau Sept, which means he doesn't get bodyguard.
Oh,
So I've pulled that one off once as well,
Oh, that
which
would also
was
work on Shadow Sun, right?
yes, it does. But Shadow Sun you can't shoot unless she's the closest. So
Oh, because she has
because of
that
her
stupid
stupid drones.
thing.
Yeah.
yeah.
God,
Oh.
she's so good. I'm genuinely, I'll come back to this later. I'm not sure if Trajan or a Heart are better for 150, 160 points. I think Shadow Sun might be stronger than Trajan. Uh,
Whoa, that's a hot take.
Wow, I think that's a boiling hot take. That's a hellfire hot take.
we'll finish this section. Yeah, Crusher.
We'll let Nathan talk about mid-table shenanigans.
Finish your section out, Nathan.
Okay, we'll continue the mid-table madness section here after Anthony calms down a little, maybe in the corner. I actually think that of all the matchups too, that Custos are the one matchup that I actually enjoy playing into the most. So so hear me out. I don't like playing into primarily shooting armies because I dislike having no interaction in the process of when I lose 1,300 points. So I understand. I get why Anthony doesn't like it as much. Like all that violence hits essentially 3 CP and all the violence stops. um, so I get it. But for me personally, and maybe it's just because of my local meta a little bit, I don't play into as many Custodes players locally as Anthony and Innis likely do. So I've had maybe fewer negative
Many.
experiences. Um,
We never fail 4++s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not going to blame Dice for any of my losses, although playing against Seth, I definitely felt kind of slighted when his Feel No Pains like spiked really hard on his commander. Yeah, Custodes players discussing lists is like caveman debating the best rock. It's true. Either the rock is covered in filigree or covered in slightly less filigree, and regardless of the situation, you're still about to get hit in the face with a rock.
I don't know.
Um,
I've always felt like it's more like the headsman deciding which axe to put down on you. Like you're gonna die either way. Does it matter? Like just
Yeah.
kill me, man. Come on.
I guess so. This is like more of a philosophical than a like meta thing. So it's very individual, like what kind of play experience you prefer. I always like to, even if it's just the illusion of participation, I like the illusion of participation in my games, which I think is why what Drukari gave you after the liquefier nerf is you had kind of the illusion of participation the whole time. Even though at the end of the game your opponent still had 300 points of witches on the board and you had nothing left, you just kind of had the illusion that you were always involved. And I've
You killed
definitely
1,700 points of Drakari and scored 7 points. Don't
yeah,
think about that though.
it was always especially fun because Drazar would normally just go off and like kill a whole army by himself. I mean, Drazar will forever be, even if I don't play him all the time moving forward, will be on like a little plinth on my hobby desk because the man has killed most of a knight's army by himself, Warglaves, mind you, and has picked up over 40 Skitari by himself as well. So he does work.
I
That's
don't
just
think I've ever truly been Drazar. Like Drazar's done like disproportionate damage to me. Like he's killed like 300 points. I've never had Drazar just like go through my army. Maybe people are just not good at dealing with him.
I,
Drazar's current record for me, which he's done twice, is 1,300.
I don't know how do you let that happen to you, man? I just don't get it.
You play Space Marines, and I just keep putting him behind Grots, and you can't kill the Grots, so I just run Drazar out
See,
and
no,
murder you.
that was the problem. I was playing Iron Hands. I could kill the Grots.
You couldn't kill the Grots and the Talos and the Kronos. Fuchain tried.
Yeah, but that's Nassim. Like that's not really that doesn't count. Like man, you could have been playing Grey Knights.
like I watched somebody who hasn't played a lot of Drukari, I think has a tendency to underestimate how punchy that army can be. I had a Crusher Stampede player put 2 Dimacarons within first turn charge distance of my pure Drukari list, and I immediately killed 2 Dimacarons. Just in like the first turn, the Grots went into combat with one, and then Drazar went into combat with the other one, and Drazar basically killed the Dimacaron by himself. Like the Archon was there to prevent interrupts, but he killed the Dimacaron by himself.
Yeah.
Man, these Crusher Stampede players need to try harder. Just headbutt him. Just introduce him to a harpy.
Yeah, man
That's all you
dies
gotta do.
next turn. The turn Drazar leaves his boat, the turn after he dies. Like, that's how playing Crusher works. Like, you get one use, goodbye.
You just want to trade up and hope for the best. Hope that that trade was worth it.
It better
Okay.
be.
Let's do the Shadow Sun versus Trajan talk because I want to get into it. All right. I'm gonna make the argument for Shadow Sun, all right?
Let's hear it.
Okay. One, she's a chapter master, which is just good, right? In an army like Ty the Head, Trajan's not a chapter master, Trajan's reroll ones and ones.
Yeah, but what extends hit on?
Yeah, sure. But it like Shadow Sun gives you a 25% increase in hits. Trajan gives you a 16%. Sure. Okay. I'm not saying that's all she does. She also gives you a reroll one's aura of 12 inches, which is pretty damn reasonable. She also her chapter master works at 12 inches because Tau Sept and that increase. She can't be
Does
shot
she
unless
get
she's the
that?
closest. Yeah, she gets it because she's a Supreme Command attachment. She gets that, and her drone increases you by 3 as well.
Does
So it's a
that
12-inch.
work?
Yeah,
in Foresight, but you can't take multiple detachments of different as Supreme
it doesn't
Command.
matter. You just can't select different keywords for units with the selectable keyword. So yes, Shadow Sun still gets all her buffs. So she gets a free hit or wound reroll as well. She also gets 4 very good shooting attacks. She gets 2 melter shots and 2 missile pod shots that are multi-damage. That hit on
Yep.
2s. Like, she can give herself Chapter Master rerolls if she really wants it. And then she gets a free hit or wound reroll. On top of that, she also just, like, moves real fast and flies. So, like, she can auto advance 6, jump on objectives, take no hit penalty after doing it, while being completely untargetable. So, like, Trajan standing next to Wardens is a pain in the backside. Do you know what's worse? Is when Shadow Sun sat at the back of the board, completely untargetable, while the entire Tower Army's 12 inches in front of her getting Chapter Master rerolls anyway.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
And she's 150 and a Supreme Commander, which means she can go into Supreme Command detachment, giving you 3 commanders in a tile list, 2 detachments.
In fairness, that would be a downside, Custodes. You want him in the HQ slot?
No, she's also in HQ. So you could
Oh,
take her
okay,
as an
okay.
HQ if you want.
She's not in, like, some weird random slot or
No, no,
whatever.
no. No, no, no. She's HQ. No,
Okay.
Trajan, very good beat stick, but does have to make combat. Gives you reroll ones and ones, but reroll ones are not that hard to come by because you're running a captain anyway. I think there is a very real argument that Shadow Sun does at least as much for a Tau army as Trajan does for a Custodes army, and she's harder to replace.
Mm, I will leave the argument that she's
Yeah.
really good and hard to replace, but better than Trajan. Just I don't
Oh,
know,
and
bro.
broadsides with rerolls that all win on 6s to hit are really a pain in the backside.
Yeah, but if you can hit Shadow Sun, she just fucking dies.
She's got a 4 vulnerable save and 2 drones that she gets for free,
Yeah.
and she's -1 to hit natively.
I think though we should also talk about all of Trajan's good stuff. Well, we'll talk about the golden stuff for just a second. I will be man who reads Wahapedia real quick.
Not Wahapedia, your codex that you have on your screen.
Yeah, my digital codex that I definitely have for Custodes. I don't know what you're talking about. So
Yes.
Trajan Valoris has a movement characteristic of 6, so he is quite a bit slower. But he's got a flat 3 damage, AP3, strength 10 melee weapon. And it's also rapid fire 1, damage 2, AP1, so it's basically a heavy bolter, rapid firing. And then he's still got a Misericordia, so he has essentially 7 attacks.
The first
Um,
drone isn't Seth. The drone has a 4 up.
yep. He does have the Adamantine Mantle, so he essentially has a 5-up shrug. He has Martial Kata, so he's affected by those. He is switchable into any shield host, so he benefits from the shield host rules of any shield host that he's in. He gives reroll hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1, which is basically what you want for your shooting platforms in a Custodes army. And then he has Moment Shackle, so once per game he can fight again. Or you can make a damage of an attack 0, or you can interrupt for free. So you get 3 different once per battle buffs that you can trigger
Oh,
essentially. And then you get 2 Warlord traits. So you also get he can heroic 6 inches, so he can get an additional movement phase essentially if your opponent ends too close to him. He gets full hit rerolls, and then he also regenerates CP on a 5-up. So you trade CP for survivability in a Custodes army, and you essentially just keep getting that CP back to keep doing it. And then once per battle in your command phase, you can also switch around your katas a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little bit better than Shadow Sun, I think.
I'm not going to say that Shadow Sun is not good, because Shadow Sun is very good.
oh, Shadow Sun also infiltrates and redeploys, so she can block movement and then fuck off backwards.
So I'm gonna say it's less of like which one is better, because I think that they both serve integral purposes for the 2 armies and are both way too inexpensive.
I find Shadow Sun more difficult to play against than Trajan, who's just a beat stick.
Yeah, I guess Trajan does also have a 3-up invulnerable save, is that right? Or is he just a
4 up,
4-up?
5.
He's
4 up
still got
and
a
4 up.
4-up, 5-up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I find Shadow Sun harder to deal with. I feel like Trajan just kind of stands around and hits some stuff. Like, fine, I can deal with that. Shadow Sun makes the entire army just do more things and also gives you really good objective control, which I don't know. I find that more difficult personally.
I guess for me, part of it is just that both characters are criminally undercosted. Like the nearest character comparison for Trajan Valoris is the leader of the Sisters of Battle, who's like 260 points or something like that, and has a similar stat line, but just slightly better shooting.
And
Well,
Chapter Master.
and she has a
with
taggable
yeah,
Chapter
she
Master
has
buff.
she has Gulliman buff, like
Yeah.
reroll hits and wins.
So she is worth more points, but probably not 105 points more than Trajan Flores. Trajan
Sorry,
himself should be
120 more.
Oh,
She's
she's
280.
280? Oh, I thought she was only 260. Oh no, that's not good.
She's almost more expensive than both of them.
So really, all that we're really saying is that Trajan should actually be like
Banned.
250 points or banned. The balance data sheet that was fake and came out with a banned list got one thing right, and that was banning Trajan Valoris straight into the trash.
Verdus Fedor should be O2.
Let's just go with I hate both of them, and that we can leave it at that.
I
Anyway, thank
also
you for
hate
joining
both
the
of them.
interactivity section of the episode, where I made you all click and type in the YouTube comments.
You've all fallen for Innes's trap card of clicking and typing in our chat channel.
Somebody's got to go for the role of say stupid things to make people talk in chat. I will happily bear that burden.
I want to hear somebody say if they actually have at least a less balanced unit than either Trajan Valoris or Shadow.
There is someone that I've played at some tournament right now that's writing a soliloquy about Draz. There's someone that's just like across the universe is just really mad.
It's funny because Tau actually have a better HQ choice now than Drazar in their armies. And is better because you can get D6 plus 2 extra damage to attacks both at ranged and in melee. You get full hit rolls to hit and wound at range and melee. And then Innes has his hand up like I'm some kind of professor and I want him to talk. Okay, go Innes.
The most unbalanced model with 40k is the Hormigaunt because it keeps tipping over.
I was gonna say Harlequin players because mine also keep falling over because they're all in these jumping off rock flippy poses. And so I ended up putting one of the torsos on wrong. So one's like doing a backward somersault off of a rock, and it's just freaking ridiculous. And yes, both Anthony and I have both made Seth very sad with Dressar in practice games.
I have only ever made Seth sad with Drazar every time we've played, which is like 4 times.
I mean, same. Every time I've played
Okay.
Seth with Dark Eldar and with Drazar, I have also made him sad.
Trajan or Wazbomb Blastojets?
Unnerved
Trajan.
Wazbomb
It's not close.
Blastjets. Yeah, Trajan still.
I don't know, man. Wazbombs are
Dude, I'll
nutty.
let someone. I would rather play against 6 Wazbombs than Trajan and Custodes right now.
I like that take. That's a pretty good take. I would rather play against pre-rule of 3 Tyranids coming out right now with 9 Hive Tyrants all with wings.
Give me
and
Dark.
9 Hive Tyrants and one's got a Tyrant Guard in the middle.
Exactly.
me-
I would rather play against that because I would at least know how foolish it is the whole time that I'm playing it.
Just give me Dark Techno Drukari back and I'll leave everybody alone.
Because they'll all be dead.
Yeah. Or they won't want to play me anymore because that army was bullshit. Anyway.
You can tell it's a slow week, guys. We can only we're not going to apologize because I think this is good content and you're enjoying it. And also remember, please do remember, Dan, dislikes are good for the algorithm too. That means people are interacting. Should not complain.
Alex
Any
does have a good
interaction.
point. The Pewter Nightbringer is pretty tippy.
That's fair.
But
That is
in
Pewter
case of
Nightbringer, Hormagaunts, maybe the old metal gargoyles.
in case of self-defense, though, I think metal carnifexes, the screamer killers, are probably your best weapon against intruders. Put that boy in a sock. Knock out your
No,
intruder.
because it'll break after the first, and then it'll be less spiky. You probably want like a chaos like a chaos dreadnought with the
Yeah.
spikes that are like really embedded.
The old metal
Far
ones.
more likely to inflict lasting damage for more intruders. And if you were in Home Alone with a dread sock, please do let us know how it worked out for you. For all the time people have talked about dread socks, I've never actually heard of anyone being hit by one. So, whereas I know exactly how damaging Whippy stick can be because everybody's been hit with Whippy sticks if you've been in 4K long enough.
So can you explain what is a Whippy stick?
So Whippy sticks, I don't have one to hand. That would be a magical. Here's one I preferred earlier. Whippy sticks are basically like this long 12-inch red sticks made of like that plastic that goes like thwap when you whip it through the air and like just breaks the sound barrier. if you get hit by one of those, it knacks, like, it really stings. They used to come in every starter box, and they came in, like, when I was, like, 12 and in the GW store, like, painting my first Assault on Black Reach Space Marines. Yeah, I have hit and been hit by far too many Whippy sticks.
Follow-up question: what is Nax?
Knacks?
Yeah.
It hurts.
It mean hurts, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Where does that
Context
come
clues.
from? No, but I'm just like curious now. Where
Do
does
you
this
want me
one
to
come
Google the
from?
etymology of the word knacks?
Yeah, actually, I do kind of want you to
Okay.
Google the
I'm gonna
etymology of the word
I'm gonna mute
Nax.
for a second. You guys need to talk about something for a bit.
Oh no.
Oh, excellent. We can
Uh,
talk about how everybody hates Chicago, I guess,
Yeah,
or we can
yeah.
talk about some 40K stuff. I suppose.
Chicago's fine. The pizza's fake. Let's talk about this. I have been casinoed by the casino cannon once or twice, but it just doesn't matter that much. Like, orcs still die, so it's okay. If my enemy can use a shuffleboard stick to play the game against me, I'm upset. I don't want to do that. If you can just kapow and just fours, I'm mad
Yeah.
personally. So I am much more okay with Tau than I am Custodes
Hmm.
personally. I would rather you, because at least it's over fast. Custodes, I have to find out that I lost to you because you rolled too many 4-ups in round 5. In against Tau, it takes maybe a round or two if you're going hot. If you just go supernova and I die, that's all right. At least we're out of here now. Because those don't work that way. We find out in round 5 that I lost. It's the worst.
I want to say that I have just been sent a picture of Whippy sticks just in my inbox from DM.
Oh,
This is
perfect.
apparently the episode where everybody DMs me when I say stuff online.
Please
Like,
remember to DM Nathan. Yeah, I can't find anything that even remotely relates to the way I understand the word knack to mean. So yeah, I got nothing. It just fully formed in my parents' mouths one day, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's do the question round, and we have one in
okay,
chat.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick break and then we're gonna come back
That's
to the
probably
question round.
smart. That's probably a
Yeah.
good idea.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to close out. That is going to be the end of the section that is available to everybody who listens to the podcast. The second section, this is available only for the people who are watching the live stream and for the people who do the YouTube supporting in whatever form that takes. The details again for that are in Colin's video. Please do go and check that out. They will cover it far better than I do from the network themselves. So for everybody else, we will be back in about 10 minutes for the bonus round, which is where we're going to go through all the listener questions from the Discord, and also we'll take some questions from chat and have some general banter. If you are here for the live stream, please do stick around for the next 10 minutes. We will be here having just a general chit chat. We may end up putting that up for the bonus round as well. That's good content, right? We'll
Yep.
figure it out. Otherwise, thank you very much if you are listening to the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the episode. Please do hit the, I think there's review buttons on all the good podcasting apps. If you leave us a review, it really helps us out with discoverability and people wanting to check us out more. And the more we get checked out, the more we will be able to continue bringing you the high and low quality entertainment that we can provide. Yeah, check out the video for all the full details on the YouTube supporting, and then you can check us out at patreon.com/bestintabletop if you would like to get access to the Discord. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will be back with you next week, same time, same place for the live stream and the podcast. And if you're here for the live stream, please do stick around.